The 1933 Long Beach earthquake was the deadliest earthquake in Southern California history. It only lasted 10 seconds, but it released as much energy as the early atomic bombs. It destroyed or rendered unusable 230 school buildings. If the earthquake had occurred at 2 o'clock in the afternoon instead of 6 o'clock, many children would have been killed. No doubt about that. About a month after the earthquake, the legislature passed the Field Act, and it said that all schools that were built after that had to be earthquake reinforced. And since that earthquake, no child has been injured in a Field Act school during an earthquake. One of the research projects that many of us are doing, especially offshore, is using seismic reflection technology, where we use sound waves and we send them down from a ship. They penetrate the seafloor and reflect off of formations and allow us to make images of the geological structure, including faults. And this is crucial to understanding how an earthquake is generated along these faults.
A native Californian, and my mother was from Canada, and my dad was from Iowa, and they met in a church in Long Beach. My granddad and grandmother from Iowa had moved out as well, and he was basically had been a farmer, but he could build anything, and that's what he loved to do. And so he and my dad had built the house that I grew up in. So that's where I grew up, in Naples. In regard to the earthquake, which happened in 1933, when I was about 4.5 years old, the memories I have, there are a few that really stayed with me, because maybe they were repeated over the years, or maybe I just they were so impressed in my memory. It was a perfectly nice day. I wasn't of school age yet, and my dad and I had gone to an after-school play that my sister was in, and I remember it being said that the teacher noticed that the children were getting very restless. Everybody was unsettled, and so she cut out a large part of the play, and everybody left early than they had expected to. So we drove home, and all three of us were in the front seat of a coupe. We had driven to our house, and and kind of tooted the horn for Mother to come out to open the garage door. And we were just waiting, and I can still remember Mother, reaching for the garage door, when all of a sudden my dad and my sister just fell over on me, just squashed me against the side door. And I can just remember being so upset that they should do this to me, just get off me. And when we all did get out, of course my dad and Mother and Virginia knew it was an earthquake that had struck, and just that first shock had pushed us all back and forth. And I quickly learned what it was, because there were a number of aftershocks that went on for days, as a matter of fact. But so we kind of pulled ourselves together and proceeded into the house, and every cupboard and drawer and a closet, the door was open, everything was just thrown out on the floor, and Mother never did replace all our glassware and all our plates and so on. And even in every room, including this very large old-fashioned radio that stood up high on its legs, was turned completely over on its head. We just never could figure out how that, what kind of a jolt and sway had caused that.
Okay, now tell us about the earthquake. Harry,
Well, it was the worst earthquake I was ever in. And
what year was it?
1933. I was a senior in high school. And we had to have our graduation out on the football field, just out in the open, because there was slight damage, not a whole lot, slight damage to the auditorium, so the big auditorium couldn't be used. But we got out in the backyard, and the clotheslines were there, and you would reach for one to have something to hold on to keep from falling down, and it would go away, and it would just move away from you, and you couldn't get it, and you reach for something over here at the other side, and then a second that was going, because it was a movement like this. It was
That must have been so weird. Had you been in smaller ones before that?
you have little ones all the time.
Yeah.
Because you hear dishes rattling in the cupboard, and there's absolutely nothing that could make them just rattle by themselves, but a tiny little
Small
earthquake.
little tremor.
Yeah. You might have had a few that would
Shake you a
rattle,
little bit,
shake.
yeah. But nothing where the ground was moving.
No.
Yeah.
This was, the ground was moving back and forth, and it was supposed to have only taken 13 seconds or something. like that, but it seemed much longer.
Time can
than-
change.
Yeah.
Time really
Mhm.
changes. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was something you never forget. And I'm glad I was in it. I'm not sorry because it was really something to experience. And my brother was in the bathroom, which was at the back of the house. He dashed right out the door, around, and shut off the electricity.
Oh,
Nobody told him to, but he knew.
he just thought of it.
And see, I was about 17, so he was 3 or 4 years older than that, and he knew that the logical thing to do was turn off the electricity, and he did, and we're glad he did. I don't know that it.
You may or may not have had a fire, but
No.
at least you certainly didn't.
But all
because of it.
that night, you could hear sirens all night, and everywhere you looked, you could see a fire.
That's a
At
fire.
some distance away, there was absolutely no fire right close to us that I was aware of. But it's that earthquake was really something. It was the strength of it was a little above 6, and maybe 6.3, something like that. That's my remembrance of it, and I can't swear that that's.
What year
also
was it? 33.
Yeah, 33. And it was something that you just never forget. You get out and you can't stand up. The ground is moving back and forth, and trees are like somebody is holding the trunk of it going like this. And we had a garage out there, and there were boxes of things like empty jars and things, because we didn't have the source for people that would take away empty jars and stuff like that. You know, nowadays we have places.
Oh, recycling.
Recycling.
Yeah.
And we didn't have that
Right.
at that kind.
Right.
And there were boxes of jars crashing down to the floor.
A lot of broken glass, I
Yeah.
bet.
Much broken glass in the middle of the garage. And, so it was something totally that you remember, you never forget. It was March 10th, 1933.
March 10th.
You never forget
Yeah.
stuff like that. And it was a little after 6 o'clock in the morning. Or
Oh.
not in the morning,
Oh,
in the evening. Because we were at the supper table.
Oh, right.
We were sitting at the supper table, except Lawrence was in the bathroom, shaving and getting ready to go somewhere. And the rest of us we just dashed out that back door. And we found just the clotheslines that we could reach for, try to be able to stand up, because the ground was going back and forth with a real force.
Yeah. That must have just been so unsettling. I mean, when, if anything is solid and stable, it's the ground under your feet,
Yeah.
And for it just to be not stable must be.
And a person would reach for a clothesline to sell it, and then that clothesline would go that way, and then you'd reach for this one, and that one would go that way. I don't think I got down off my feet. I think I stayed on my feet. I think. Let's put it that way.
Your house wasn't damaged, just the boxes in the garage with the glass and stuff.
There probably was some damage to the house, but
mine,
I can't tell you what all it was. And that house had belonged to some bootlegger in years earlier, long before. It had a basement in it. It had a cellar. We never went down there. And my folks didn't keep things down in the cellar. Nobody went down. But it had been a bootlegger, because some of the doors between the different parts of the houses, the top was like a tin siding on it. And if you could look at the top of that door, you could see spaces in there that were the shape of a bottle of some kind of liquor.
Alcoholics.
Yeah. Some sort of liquor. I remember we looked at those doors. The tops of the doors, half part of it was tin with spaces inside where bottles could have been.
Huh.
And
Interesting.
it was kind of a little bit bigger house than some of those in that area, but. We found things about that. Bootleggers moved there sometime before.
And where was that house? Was that in Hawthorne, or where was that?
No, that was in what they call lately Firestone Park or something.
Firestone Park.
They called it Graham then. We went to the school was called Graham.
Yeah.
I can't say about
Is that
when.
Graham?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
Graham. And I can't say whether it was Firestone Park then or
All right.
is just now, but they called it Graham before.
Oh, now we can see ourselves. You can spin
I
that
know.
thing right around.
I don't want to see myself.